James, tell us what Andy Ngo has been up to, our outsider from the States.
Well, really disturbing news, Rowan and Rita, about Andy Ngo, who is, just to remind everybody, an editor at Quillette.com, that fantastic journal, a contributor to the Wall Street Journal, and he has been documenting in Portland, Oregon, the antics of these violent Antifa thugs, these left-wing progressive thugs who go around with black masks and threaten people and beat people up. And overnight our time, he was beaten up himself at one of these protests. We're throwing some footage right now. We can't actually air the audio because it is so full of obscenities and cursing at this guy.
He got punched, kicked. They're covering him in vegan milkshake. They stole his camera equipment.
Yeah.
And they're chasing him, throwing things at him. It is just so vile.
This is the tolerant left.
This is masked thugs. And can you imagine if this was conservatives behaving this way against a journalist? Now, Andy is a migrant. He was from parents who are refugees. He is gay. He ticks all the intersection
identity boxes, yeah.
They should actually value. But because he dares actually do real journalism and expose the antics of these violent thugs, this is how they treat him. This is what they do.
This is an absolute disgrace because the mayor of Portland has been letting the Antifa thugs take over their downtown for months and months and months now. The police do not do anything. Businesses are having to shut their gates whenever these guys come through for fear of what's going to happen to them. This shows the face of the radical progressive left. And you know what? Make no mistake. Today it's Andy Ngo. Next day it'll be somebody else. They will do this to anybody who they think is not woke enough.
Well,
I mean, if Andy is a target, given the fact of his background, anybody will be a target. Anybody who dares speak the truth and expose these militant leftist thugs for what they are, and that is not isolated. This is how they behave. They have gone after businesses, individuals, anybody who stands in their way.
They went after Tucker Carlson in Washington last week. They tried to publicize his address, his home address, to the idea being that people would swarm his house, would attack him, would make him a target of this. These people did not play fair. If Tucker Carlson and a gay Asian American are the face of fascism, because they always say, oh, we're anti-fascism, no, that is the most Orwellian nonsense. These guys are thugs. They are the face of the radical left, and they need to be shut down.
Well, and our media should stop calling these people anti-racist, because they're not anti-fascist, they're not anti-racist. That's what they call themselves to justify that kind of behaviour. In fact, they are totalitarian thugs, and they are the most bigoted people you would come across. So for them to label themselves anti-racist and for the media to regurgitate that has to stop.
Correct.
Okay, so recent events in Portland surrounding the an altercation involving a right-wing propagandist named Andy Ngo has inflamed the usual complainers, grifters, lamenters, the tone police, and all of the other people who get their reasonable points off of demonizing and vilifying the left. Now, this was a rally where the Proud Boys, the right-wing protesters, were very poorly represented because that movement has lost a lot of steam as of late. And I think a lot of the aftermath of this was in order to deflect the fact that the Proud Boys no longer have the cachet that they once did in terms of being a counter. Well, here's the thing, because I don't want to perpetuate the meme that the Proud Boys are a counter movement to Antifa. That's a bunch of horse shit. Unless you've, and again, America has such a short political memory, unless you just got here, you will realize that the Antifa movement is a counter movement. As it exists today, there were some black bloc protesters in Occupy Wall Street, and that was the first time that I think that the modern iteration of Antifa in America became prominent in the press, and they were accused of being troublemakers because sort of the mainstream protester during Occupy Wall Street was kind of an angry liberal progressive. the modern Antifa movement is much less sympathetic to liberals and the establishment, and the feeling seems to be mutual, because the establishment loves vilifying Antifa as being unreasonably violent. Modern American liberalism in the last 5 years has been more or less co-opted by the right wing, and of course there is a case to be made that liberalism inherently has a right bias, because it has a fealty to preserving established power, or at least making sure that its reforms don't upset the apple cart of established power dynamics. Okay, so Andy No shows up at the rally and agitates because he is to call him a journalist is absurd and grotesque, and it is a offense to the idea of journalism. To call him a sensationalist is generous. So I'm going to stick with propagandist. And I'm going to stick with the stigmatized version, the negative connotation of that word, propagandist, because Bronx is also a propagandist. A lot of my fellow YouTubers who are like great content creators are propagandists, but there is a malicious form of propaganda that is tactical and, most importantly, disingenuous, which is to say, it's deliberate obfuscation. It is deliberate fabrication. This is the sphere of Project Veritas. This is the sphere of Ben Shapiro. This is manufacturing narratives out of whole cloth, in order to bending and breaking reality to preserve the power and influence of existing parties. So Andy has made a bunch of, he's one of these right-wing guys from university who was cast out for writing intolerant stuff in a journal at his college, and then used the victim points to segue into the disaffected liberal elites of the intellectual dark web, who are a bunch of quasi-academic propagandists and grifters who present themselves as champions of Western culture, blah blah blah, defending Western culture from social justice sensitivities and pearl clutching. It's a bunch of horseshit. So Andy shows up, as he usually does, nakedly working for the Proud Boys side of the equation. This guy is an operative. He is not there to, and again, forget about impartiality. He's not even there to just record events with a sympathy towards the Patriot Prayer, alt-right, alt-light, Proud Boy, because they've got all these tiers and sub-brands and stuff. So he's the anti-Antifa journalist. He's not just there to observe. He is there to provoke. He is there to undermine, and he is there to gather intelligence. He is an active operative. He is there to collect information, to report and harass these members of Antifa, because most of them are masked up. He's out there to expose Antifa. So it's not like he was just harmlessly recording the protest. He came to fuck. Like, he really came with a hard-on, you know what I'm saying, to the situation. And then again, the video showcasing the assault of Andy No starts literally from him getting hit. So we don't have confirmation that he wasn't the first one to throw a punch. All we have is what could be edited footage of him getting hit once or twice in the course of getting out of a crowd of people. There have been reports that he was photographing roster information for the Antifa protesters so that he could feed to the right-wing media and right-wing organizations so that they know who to harass and who to arrest and stuff like that. So this is not a case of, ooh, you know, he knew what he was doing and he deserved to be assaulted. This is a case of we don't know what happened before the hit. So we can't even say what the fuck he was doing. We can't say what actually happened yet. We don't have enough information. But we do know that he was not observing. That's not what he was there to do. He was there to do work. He was there to collect personal information of people, and he was an active agent. Whatever came of that, I don't know, because I don't have any information on how the guy got hit. Now, before this punch, there was some complaining about him getting hit with an acid milkshake. That is even more disingenuous and cynical than the beating part of it, because it was a vegan milkshake, and the memesters, the grifters on the right end, of course. Here's the thing with the modern right wing, and probably you could say right wing in general. So I'm going to give you an example. They know that being anti-gay is not in vogue. So the modern right wing has to take Desmond is amazing in various cases and shift the narrative, which is, oh, well, you know, I don't have a problem with gays per se, but also they are not just gays. And again, the Christian right used to do this back in the day, but less focused on pedophilia and more focused on bestiality. Well, if we let gays get married to other people of the same sex, and how far are we from allowing people to marry chickens or donkeys or cows or something? Their focus was on correlating gayness to bestiality or gayness to polygamy. The modern right wing, alt-right, is doing the Fox News things of, like, we're just asking questions like, does gayness lead to pedophilia? Is the LGBT movement just priming, just seeding for the acceptance of pedophilia? You see how they do it? So the right wing can't get the sympathy points they want. They can't get the outrage going that they want over milkshakes being thrown at people, because it's a relatively harmless gesture. It's more humiliating than anything else, and the average person would laugh at that. But what they do is they then manufacture a narrative that these are special milkshakes and they have acid inside of them. They cannot criticize the left for what they actually do, so they'll just fabricate or exaggerate in order to make themselves a proper victim. And of course, this is, whether he got hit or not, this is a cash scam. When he showed up to the rally, he already had a GoFundMe set up for sympathy points. So whether it was for the milkshake or getting punched or kicked or spit on or getting his camera broken, Andy Ngo went there to make money off of conservative victim points, which is addictive to conservatives, because people in power have two options. They can confront the reality of what their power costs to other people, which takes empathy and takes and has an emotional cost to it, or they can receive and perpetuate a narrative that they are the victim of the people they victimize. That the people that are being victimized by their power are in fact the people victimizing them. You could point this out about the Tea Party, that they're talking about, ooh, these people working minimum wage are victimizing billionaires, which is absurd and grotesque, but there's money in lying. Under capitalism, you can't monetize truth, because everybody can get the truth more or less for free. What you can monetize is stories and narratives, and selling to people that are oppressing and exploiting other people a false, a fantasy that is comforting. Because the human mind generally, when choosing between an uncomfortable truth that involves holding yourself accountable for the implications of what you've done, is on the table, and then on the other table is, you know, if that's on one table for free and the other table's charging you $1,000 to feed you a story where you're a hero and the people you hurt are villains, and you keeping or acquiring power is a heroic act, you're gonna always buy. You're always going to buy you're going to spend the $1,000 to take the comfort rather than the accountability. And these people are, I come back to, these people are paid lamenters. They are paid to lament the tragedy of the powerful.